Mark Meadows, top guy, right next to him. I believe at one point, chief of staff. Is that what was going on? I'm trying to remember what position he had. It's shifted so much. Who knows? So there's Mark Meadows, who now has been apparently working with the prosecution and then going after his former boss, Donald Trump. He's talking to Jack Smith's team, that guy, the ghoul, Jack Smith. He's talking to him because I think they've got Mark Meadows all hemmed up. So now, he's seen him 3 times just in this year, including once before this federal grand jury, which only came after Smith granted Meadows this immunity for his testimony under oath. A source that was talking to ABC News pointed out what happened. Here it goes. The sources said that Meadows informed Smith's team that he repeatedly told Trump in the weeks after the 2020 presidential election that the allegations of significant voter fraud coming to them were baseless. A striking break from Trump's prolific rhetoric regarding the election. And according to the sources, Meadows also told the federal investigators Trump was being dishonest with the public when he first claimed to have won the election only hours after polls closed on November 3rd, before the final results were in. Quote, obviously we didn't win, a source quoted Meadows as telling Smith's team in hindsight of that situation. Again, though, more sources told ABC News that Smith's investigators were keenly interested in questioning Meadows about election-related conversations he had with Trump during his final months in office, and whether Meadows actually believed some of those claims that he included in a book that he published after Trump left office, a book that he promised to, quote, correct the record on Trump. And that's when he maybe gets himself tied up in knots. Because I remember there's this Washington Post article. I was thinking about this. Mark Meadows told Donald Trump, this is gonna be a problem. You actually didn't win the election. The counsel, other folks surrounding you say so. I believe Bill Barr was one of them as well, but Mark Meadows was definitely one of those names. I remember the January 6th committee, that witch hunt committee that they railed on consistently over and over and over again. When Cassidy Hutchinson testified that they were talking about January 6th, it's upcoming, on like January 2nd, there's gonna be a big day. And also how they had this coalition of folks that kept telling Trump, yo, you lost. Here's a quote actually from this article, because this is what they said they walked in on Donald Trump saying. Again, this is from the Washington Post, not New York Times, the Washington Post. It said former President Trump's communications director recounted popping into the Oval Office roughly a week after the election to find a morose Trump watching TV and said this: "Can you believe I lost to this effing guy?" This is what Trump lamented, referring to Joe Biden. So from folks that are talking about it, they've already revealed that Donald Trump not only heard that he lost that election, but that he also admitted to it without anyone asking him. So did you lose, bro? He just said, I can't believe I lost to this effing guy. Let's go to some of the things from his book after your first thoughts here, Maz.
Well, one of the issues that we're going to run into is Donald Trump is like a mafia boss. He never uses text or email or anything. I don't know if he wrote anything down. At the same time, he's got such an ego that there's probably a recording of him somewhere going, I lost the election. There's probably a recording somewhere. But the bigger issue is, even once it comes out and all these people that are so close to him, his former chief of staff is going to say that he knew it, and everybody says he knew it. Still, he has a big portion of his followers in the population who still will make excuses and still vote for him, because the truth is that he allows them to lean into their racism. He allows them to lean into their sexism, their anti-LGBTQ sentiment, their anti-immigrant sentiment. He allows them to be the worst person that they want to be. And so even when it comes out that he knew he was lying, he knew that he lost, there's still gonna be a portion of the population that's gonna stay with him, unfortunately.
I always wonder how these aides, these advisors, these subordinates, attorneys continue to work from it after the previous ones talk about the horrific experiences that they had. In many cases, ended up in them not being paid or them being indicted, things like that. By the way, we did mention that Mark Meadows wrote a book that actually said opposite things. What was in that book? Let's go to this, more from ABC News. According to Meadows' book, again, this is Meadows writing a book, but he's saying the opposite. According to Meadows' book, the election was stolen and rigged with help from allies in the liberal media who ignored actual evidence of fraud right there in plain sight for anyone to access and analyze. First of all, everyone knew that was BS. When someone writes something like that, and it was assisted by the liberal media. Which ones? Who knows? They're all, if you're a liberal media, according to these folks, then you assisted in this entire process, because that's how these things work. It doesn't have to really have a coordination. It just has to be said. More though, but as described to ABC News, Meadows privately told Smith's investigators that to this day, he has yet to see any evidence of fraud that would have kept now President Joe Biden from the White House. And he told them he agrees with the government assessment at the time that the 2020 election was the most secure election in U.S. history. Jenna Ellis was also talking about how she had some hindsight. She'd be doing different things too. Last part. Meadows said that in mid-December, he privately informed Trump that Giuliani hadn't produced any evidence to back up the many allegations he was making. Then Attorney General Bill Barr also informed Trump and Meadows in an Oval Office meeting that allegations of election fraud were not panning out, as Barr recounted to testimony in Congress last year. Hold on. If something is provable, if there's evidence behind it, it doesn't need to pan out. What's panning? Panning out means you put these things together and actually panned out in your favor and you weren't sure if it could. It should pan out in your favor if you have evidence and you're presenting it in court and then you lost 18 cases after you lost the election that went through all of your evidence and you're panning out of evidence that didn't really pan out. That means that you lost, bro.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.